Okay, so welcome to my Action Research virtual poster presentation. So my problem statement is inquiry is becoming a more and more widely accepted approach to teaching. It gives students some license over their learning and provides more of a hands-on experience. Students are often more engaged and retain more of what they have learned in the classroom. The current issue is not everyone is prepared to implement inquiry into their classroom, or they're not ready to try inquiry in grades above kindergarten. Kindergarten being kind of the starting point where children learn inquiry, and often you find that older classrooms will sometimes lean to a more traditional approach to teaching, but we are making big strides, I think, in the education community as far as embracing inquiry and letting students really build some excellent learning skills. So inquiry is actually a very broad term, and a lot of new teachers, including myself, don't have a firm grasp of how to roll it out in a classroom. My goal is to prepare myself to use the different teaching methods under the broad umbrella of inquiry so that I can teach inquiry in grades 1 to 3. So my research will be focusing on methods to use inquiry in the classroom and how to effectively weave in curriculum while using it. Our educational climate is constantly changing, and inquiry is part of the current movement that is coming into many classrooms. Many teachers entering the classroom today were only exposed to traditional classroom growing up, and it is important to be exposed to alternative methods of teaching in order to gain multiple perspectives on our ability to impart knowledge and teach skills to our students. In today's classrooms, students are less and less engaged, and inquiry can be used to develop healthy engagement in students and promote a very successful learning environment. Um, Inquiry-based learning really was first introduced to me in Teachers College, and since then I've been growing more and more in my understanding of it. I was exposed to it in a small scale in my first teaching placement, and in a more broad scale, I would say, in my second teaching placement in grade 1, where there was at least 2 or 3 mornings every week where the class was open to inquiry and the students were allowed uh, to choose what they were going to learn about. There's different stations set up, so it wasn't completely wide open inquiry, but they had 5 or 6 choices, and they would go to that station and begin their inquiry-based learning. So my boiled down research question: how can I improve students' engagement by implementing the inquiry approach to teaching at a primary level? Uh, right here, just some central or relevant terms. I've defined inquiry approach to learning. And this again is putting the students at the center, kind of going against that traditional form of learning where the teacher is at the front and the students just are sitting in their chairs absorbing information, filling up with information, when rather the students are developing skills so that they can learn on their own, answer their own questions, as well as pose new questions to further their own learning. I have the traditional classroom here, like I just explained, and student engagement, which is the level to which a student can identify with a topic of study and is genuinely interested about learning more. And that can really be a challenge, I think, in today's classroom. I feel like teachers and parents, for that matter, are battling with Instagram, YouTube, um, anything you can find online. Video games, Fortnite is a huge thing right now, which some teachers I've heard have brought into the classroom to engage students. And if it works, great. But it'd be nice if students more readily brought things to you that they wanted to know about, things they're bringing that engagement into the classroom before you really have to give them that push, which is the idea with teaching them a learning method surrounded by inquiry. And so just here is some articles that I pulled that I read for research um, based on my topic. So this article here, Phases of Inquiry-Based Learning, Definitions and the Inquiry Cycle, was actually a very dense peer-reviewed article, but I would say quite valuable. It goes through what inquiry-based learning is, and it also kind of helps explain how wide of a spectrum inquiry-based learning has. Um, you can be doing it to answer a specific question. It can go all the way to the extent of having research and experimenting, actually carrying out a physical experiment with controls and all that sort of thing. But it can also be simpled down to what I would say would be similar to most subjects for inquiry-based learning in an elementary primary system. Obviously, if you're doing science, you definitely could do inquiry and really get into experiments and predictions and that kind of thing. But what I was more looking for was to kind of have it spelled out to me how I could start inquiry in the classroom, and this did a pretty good job. Like I said, it was peer reviewed, it was quite scientific, and it broke it down into a lot of different phases. And having read it now, I I would likely go back and read it again before doing this action research in my classroom, to really get a good grip and kind of maybe pick it apart and have it organized in a document with different sections that I could pull out when I was going through that part of the inquiry. It has here your orientation, conceptualization, investigation, your conclusion, and discussion, which I think is really great. And while reading that, that kind of set in my mind what this action research would look like as a whole while I was running it in my classroom. Your orientation, I feel, would be the first month at least of school, kind of getting students used to what they're going to be experiencing, and then conceptualization is involving or defining your problem. Now, we're not going to have one giant problem in our class that we're always working on. We could likely have a big question that would be cross-curricular. It would be great to pull in a lot of different parts of the curriculum, but I feel that we would likely have several different questions going on, and I would be doing my best to weave in the curriculum, which I feel would also be a really great practice to me on the side of the action research that is occurring. So like I said, it was actually quite a dense article. This here is a little more complex, and I think what I would be working with in my classroom. But this was actually I found really helpful, kind of like a roadmap, going through what inquiry is and how it would be done in a highly detailed level. Like I said, I would mostly just be using the headings and maybe some of the prompts here. I think they'd be very effective.